I married Jake at 27. He was the love of my life, reliable, strong, and the man I built a home with. We were that perfect couple at dinner parties, holding hands, smiling in sync. But somewhere after the second kid and the 10th year, we stopped seeing each other. Jake was still a good man, but he became mechanical. Routine. He provided, he protected, but he stopped connecting. We barely spoke outside of logistics bills, groceries, school pickups. He'd fall asleep with his phone in hand, and I'd cry quietly beside him, longing for someone to ask how I was doing. Enter Liam. He wasn't even my type. A bit younger. A graphic designer I met through work. We started as colleagues, then casual coffee chats. He remembered things. My birthday, the way I liked my coffee, the name of my dog. He noticed when I cut my hair. Jake never noticed that anymore. Our texts turned playful, then flirtatious, then emotional. I told myself it was innocent, that I was just venting. But I knew deep down I was seeking something I wasn't getting at home. Affection, attention, aliveness. The first kiss felt like oxygen. After that, the affair unraveled fast. Lunch breaks turned into hotel rooms. I'd make dinner, help with homework, kiss my kids goodnight, then sneak out claiming I was meeting a friend. I became someone I didn't recognize. A liar. A cheater. But I was also alive. I hated how much I craved Liam. Not just the sex, but the way he made me feel like a woman again, not just a mother or a wife. We even talked about leaving our partners. But we both knew it was messy and unfair. Eventually, I broke. One night, Jake looked at me and asked, "Are you in love with someone else?" I couldn't lie anymore. I nodded. The aftermath was brutal. Jake was shattered. Our kids were confused. Liam and I ended things not out of guilt, but because I realized I had used him to fill a void I needed to face on my own. Today, I'm separated. In therapy, and rebuilding slowly. I don't excuse what I did. I regret the hurt I caused, but I also understand myself more than ever. Sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't to your partner, it's to yourself, when you abandon your own emotional needs for too long. It wasn't the sex at first. It was the way he listened. That's the part no one really talks about when they think of infidelity. It doesn't always begin with seduction or some passionate whirlwind. For me, it started in the quiet corners of my loneliness, the kind of emptiness that builds up slowly, almost invisibly, over the years of marriage. Jake, my husband, wasn't a bad man. In fact, he was everything I thought I wanted. Steady, responsible, hard-working. But somewhere along the line, we stopped really seeing each other. The goodnight kisses turned into absent-minded pecks. The dinner conversations dwindled into silence. And I, little by little, disappeared inside my own life. I remember the moment I met Liam. It wasn't special, not in any way that would make you think your life is about to change. He was just another face in a meeting at my office, younger than me, with a warm smile and an ease about him that made people feel seen. He noticed the book I was reading during lunch. He asked questions that weren't just polite small talk. He was genuinely curious about me. And for the first time in a long time, I found myself answering those questions like I mattered, like someone actually cared. I went home that night and felt guilty, not because I had done anything wrong, but because I had enjoyed talking to another man more than I had enjoyed talking to my husband in months. That's the danger people don't see coming, the emotional intimacy. It sneaks up on you. It feels harmless. You start justifying it to yourself. It's only coffee. It's only a text. But it's never just that. Because what's really happening is that someone is feeding a part of your soul that's been starving, and you can't believe how hungry you've been until someone offers you a meal. With Jake, our conversations were about the kids, groceries, his job, the leaking sink. With Liam, it was about dreams, regrets, favourite movies, the smell of rain, childhood memories. He asked about my artwork, something Jake hadn't done in years. He told me my ideas were interesting. I found myself dressing better, smiling more, feeling alive in ways I hadn't felt in ages. At first, I thought I was just enjoying attention. I told myself I was flattered, that it was harmless. But the truth was uglier. I was emotionally invested. I waited for his messages. I crafted my replies carefully, hoping to impress him. I'd smile at my phone like a teenager in love. And all the while, I pretended nothing was changing. I was still cooking dinner for my family, still folding laundry, still showing up to school events. But internally, something had already shifted. My heart was split. I'd find myself comparing Jake to Liam in subtle, cruel ways. Liam listened. Liam remembered. Liam cared. Jake, meanwhile, barely noticed when I changed my hairstyle or looked extra tired after work. It hurt more than I expected, this growing awareness of what I was missing. And it wasn't just about Liam being charming. It was about me realizing how emotionally abandoned I had felt for so long. I couldn't remember the last time Jake had asked how I was really doing. Not just in passing, but in that deep present way that says, I'm here with you. I didn't feel seen anymore. I felt like furniture, necessary, functional, but taken for granted. And Liam, without even trying, made me feel like a woman again. Like I had layers worth exploring. This isn't to say Jake was the villain. He was just distracted, tired, comfortable. We both got lazy in the relationship. I didn't speak up when I should have. I didn't scream when I felt invisible. I just folded into myself, quietly resentful, quietly aching. So when Liam came along, I was already vulnerable, the door already slightly open, just waiting for someone to notice it. People assume affairs are about sex, about lust, and betrayal. But they rarely talk about emotional betrayal, the betrayal of being overlooked, unheard, untouched in all the ways that matter most. That's what truly opens the gate to infidelity. Not temptation, but emotional starvation. And the saddest part is, sometimes you don't even realize how neglected you've been until someone finally pays attention. I used to think leading a double life was something only people in movies did, secret agents, con artists, fictional characters, who lived in suspenseful thrillers. But then I found myself slipping into that role, quietly and gradually, until I was balancing two worlds, like a tightrope walker who never expected to be on the wire in the first place. One moment, I was baking cookies with my kids. The next, I was checking my phone under the kitchen counter to see if Liam had messaged me. The guilt would hit in sharp, sudden waves, like catching your own reflection in a dirty mirror. I knew I was doing something wrong. I knew this wasn't me. And yet, I couldn't stop. It started small. A message here and there. Inside jokes. Long text threads that carried into the night. Then came the meetings. First, it was just coffee at a place far from home. Then, it was lunch. Then one day, I told Jake I had a work training, but instead, I met Liam at a hotel. I remember standing in front of the mirror in that hotel bathroom, staring at myself, asking, "What are you doing?" I didn't have an answer. I just knew I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Wanted, desired, seen. But that feeling didn't last long. The thrill of the affair quickly gave way to a kind of slow-burning dread. Every time I smiled at my husband, it felt like a lie. Every time I kissed my kids goodnight, I wondered what they'd think of me if they knew. The worst part? I still loved Jake. That was the most confusing and painful part of it all. I loved my husband, but I was sleeping with another man. I didn't want to hurt him, but I couldn't seem to stop hurting him behind his back. I thought I could compartmentalize it, keep Liam in this secret emotional box that wouldn't interfere with the rest of my life. But emotions don't work that way. Guilt seeps through every wall you try to build. There were nights I would lie in bed next to Jake, my heart pounding, wondering if he knew. He'd snore, softly, completely unaware, and I would feel like the worst kind of person. Sometimes he'd roll over, drape an arm across me, and it would make me flinch inside, because I didn't deserve that comfort. I didn't deserve his trust. But I'd still curl into him, trying to convince myself I was still his. That I could fix this. That maybe it would just fade away. But it didn't fade. It grew. And so did the lies. I became an expert at deceit, finding excuses, deleting messages, faking calendar invites. The energy it took to maintain that web of deception was exhausting. I'd get migraines. I'd snap at my kids for little things. I'd feel sick every time Liam would suggest we run away together, because while part of me was flattered, the other part was horrified. I didn't want a new life. I wanted my old life, the one where I didn't have to split myself between two identities. But I had gone too far. I was in too deep. There's a kind of loneliness that only liars understand. It's the isolation of being with people who love you, while knowing they don't really know you anymore. Jake would laugh at something on TV, and I'd smile, pretending. He'd talk about plans for the future, vacations, the kids' college funds, and I'd nod, while a voice inside me whispered, "If only you knew." I started avoiding eye contact, started avoiding sex. I hated being touched, not because I didn't love Jake, but because I felt like I was contaminating him with every caress. I was haunted by the weight of secrets I couldn't share. Liam, too, started to change. What began as an escape turned into pressure. He wanted more of me, more time, more commitment, more truth. He said he loved me. I believed him, but I also resented him. Because the more he demanded, the more I had to lie. I began to dread our meetings, not because I didn't still feel something for him, but because the cost was becoming too high. I was losing myself in the deception. Living a double life isn't glamorous. It's exhausting. It drains you. It changes the way you walk, talk, breathe. You begin to monitor every word you say, every glance, every pause in conversation. You become paranoid, defensive. You rehearse stories in your head before you say them out loud. And worst of all, you start to believe your own lies just so you can make it through the day without collapsing. Every moment of peace feels undeserved. Every smile from your family feels like a slap. You're no longer just cheating on your spouse, you're cheating on who you used to be. And that, more than anything, is what slowly starts to kill you inside. When I finally told Jake, I didn't do it because I wanted to fix our marriage. I did it because I couldn't stand to live another day pretending. The lies had become unbearable, the weight of my own deception too heavy to carry any longer. I was unraveling from the inside out. My body felt sick, all the time knots in my stomach, a constant tightness in my chest. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't myself anymore. And the truth, ugly as it was, felt like the only way I could start breathing again. It wasn't about seeking forgiveness. It wasn't even about being brave. It was about survival. I didn't plan it. There was no big confrontation, no dramatic moment. One evening, while folding laundry in the living room, Jake asked a simple question. "Are you okay? You've been distant." I looked up, and I don't know what he saw in my eyes, but his expression changed. He asked again, this time softer. "Is there someone else?" I froze. For a second, I considered lying, denying, spinning a story. I could have done it. I was good at it by then. But something broke in me. My shoulders dropped. My hands trembled. I nodded. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Jake didn't shout. He didn't curse. He just stared at me like I was a stranger sitting in his wife's body. His face collapsed in slow motion, and that expression will haunt me for the rest of my life. It was like I had taken a sledgehammer to everything we had built our marriage, our home, our family, and smashed it without warning. I saw his heartbreak in real time, and it gutted me. But strangely, there was a calmness in me, too. A stillness. Because after months of pretending, the truth was finally in the room, and I didn't have to hide anymore. The days that followed were brutal. Jake moved into the guest room. We barely spoke, except when necessary. The kids sensed something was wrong, but we tried to keep it together for them. Every conversation was tense, fragile. He wanted to know everything. When it started, how far it went, why. I told him the truth, as much as I could without causing more damage. I didn't justify it. I didn't blame him. I took ownership of my choices not to win him back, but to stop lying. I owed him that much. Confessing didn't bring relief. It brought chaos. It brought pain. Friends we shared began taking sides. His family stopped speaking to me. I lost people I thought would always be there. But I also lost something else, the fear of being found out. That fear had ruled my life for months, shaping my every move, every word. And now it was gone. In its place came grief. A deep, aching grief, not just for my marriage, but for the version of myself I had lost in the process. Jake asked me if I still loved him. I told him I did. And I meant it. But I also told him I wasn't sure that love was enough anymore. That the person I had become, in the silence of our marriage, the woman who needed Liam, who betrayed her vows, who craved attention and affection, wasn't someone I could ignore. We tried therapy. We tried sleeping in the same bed. Again. We tried being normal. But it was like trying to rebuild a house that had already burned down. The foundation was cracked. The trust was gone. Eventually, we separated. Not in anger, but in exhaustion. Jake said he didn't hate me, but he couldn't stay with me either. I understood. I didn't beg. I didn't fight it. Because as painful as it was, I knew the truth had done something necessary. It had broken the cycle. I was no longer living a lie. I was no longer sneaking around, no longer pretending, no longer numbing myself with distraction. I had finally stopped running. In the months that followed, I started therapy. I started journaling. I started sitting with my guilt instead of running from it. And I realized something important. Telling the truth didn't fix anything, but it freed me to start over. I wasn't proud of what I had done. I wasn't expecting redemption. But I was finally being honest not just with Jake, but with myself. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like a kind of peace I could live with.